All right, so I'm having a little fun finding out how I can record stuff and share ideas with you. Today I wanted to bring up the victim, villain, hero triangle. So this is important for many reasons. First off, this is a guideline to notice when you're on this path and how to strengthen your resolve to stay on this path, to notice when you're slipping and you're going in this direction or when you're in this energy, but also as a diagnostic tool to calibrate other people. Are they on this path? Are they on this path? Are they energy vampires? Who would I like to relate with? And all that will be covered in this video. So to begin, we all start off as victims. I think there's a better word, but for sake of the metaphor, I think this is very important. When we're born, one of the biggest qualities of victimhood is not being able to influence your surroundings, right? Being powerless, being dependent. So when we're first born, we are completely dependent on our parents, right? We can't just up and hero and get ourselves out of the crib, feed ourselves, get shelter for ourselves, take care of ourselves, right? We are completely dependent on our parents in all aspects. We have a little bit of influence, right? However, that comes in the form of crying, nonverbal communication, things like that. However, we're still dependent on our parents to correctly interpret what our cries mean, what our communication means. So we all start off here. Okay? So the signs of a hero is a person who begins to notice their agency. There are a lot of things that are outside of our control, right? Like I can't control the weather, but I can choose how I respond to the weather. An easy example is if it's raining, I can take an umbrella with me to protect myself from the rain, stay shielded, right? So that is something that's within my power where I can adapt to things outside of my control, right? So a hero, their perception, their way of looking at the world is to consider what obstacles are in my way, what's outside of my control, and what's within my control. What is within my influence? How can I respond to these obstacles, right? So taking a step back, life is a constant series of obstacles. And there's a big reason for this. If we think about exercising, how do you progress in exercise, right? By increasing the resistance, increasing the challenge that you overcome. The only way to not, if we're considering a frictionless system with no obstacles, you wouldn't even work out, because just by doing body weight movements, you are basically, the obstacle is gravity, right? That is the form of resistance. So there's still friction. In a frictionless system, you wouldn't work out at all. You just sit in a chair all day. And what happens when there's no friction, when there's no resistance? You wither away. Your body atrophies, right? And there's a very big parallel to this with people who retire, right? When people retire and they no longer have a purpose, they no longer have some resistance, obstacles to face and overcome, they lose meaning and they tend to atrophy in the brain. So in a frictionless system, we would atrophy totally and completely. Our mind, our body, all of us, right? So it's important that obstacles exist, that resistance exists. And I hope you can see my arrow. I have been having issues with recording where it doesn't pick up my arrow, and it's very important since I can't point at things because I don't have a whiteboard set up yet. But the sign of a hero is a person who sees the obstacles and asks, how would I like to respond? What's within my power? What influence do I have here? What would I like to achieve, right? And they focus on that. So, personally, I hope that you can see this. I like to work with individuals that are at this place. They've overcome being a victim in most areas in their life, and they're on their way to becoming the biggest, the best hero that they can be. It's super fulfilling when you help a person tap into this, right? That's why I do what I do. And that's why my brand is Playful Empowerment. I playfully empower heroes to unlock their full potential. Make sense? So I'm going to leave that there for now. Maybe the color kind of sucks. I wanted to take a step back to victimhood. So what happens, we kind of get a sense of what it means to be a hero, right? Appreciating obstacles, knowing that by overcoming them, we're growing, that we're tapping into something deeper and bigger inside, we're working out those muscles, and we're reaching our full potential. So what about the villain? What happens here? So what happens, say a person is a victim. So the mindset of a victim is the opposite of a hero. It's kind of goes back to being a baby, right? Everything is outside of my control. The world happens at me. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can say. Everything's just going to play out how it is. I'm completely powerless. So, and I think that's a really important distinction. In victimhood, it's a sense of powerlessness. In hero and villainhood, there's a sense of power. And we'll see how a villain develops. So a victim, what happens is these obstacles keep on piling up. Keep on piling up. They don't believe there's anything they can do. Everything is outside their control. So stuff just keeps happening at them, happening at them, happening at them, happening at them. And at some point, that power that they do have inside that wants to express, because power wants to express. We want to grow. We are all called to grow in some way. That growing potential, that power we have inside, wants to express, except since victims don't know and don't see how they can use it, how to channel it in a healthy way, it just comes out in the form of lashing out or whatever it is. And this is what tends to happen. The victim has an episode where things get there's so much stress, so much buildup, their back's against the wall like a cornered animal, and they lash out. Bam! For a split second, they've become a villain. And now there's two things that can happen. We've heard about this in war, right? A person is in a really stressful environment. Their survival is at stake. There's crazy things happening all over the place. Severe overload and not feeling like there's much control. It's pure chaos, right? And then all of a sudden they see themselves doing something they never thought they'd see themselves doing. Like killing kids, whatever it is. An extreme case, I don't want to bring this up, but, taking out their aggression on the local people that may just be civilians, not even part of the war. And then they look at their hands, so they have this moment where they break. They become a villain. They do something that they don't agree with, that they didn't want to do. That power inside just expressed because they were backed in a corner. And then they jump back to victimhood, and they're like, I can't believe I did that. And now that's just one more thing that feels out of their control. Their anger, they're lashing out. I didn't do that. Some other part of me did that. So now they go back to victimhood, and now they're even more afraid of this monster that's living inside of them. And this, in a way, is PTSD. Want to make a quick disclaimer. This is not medical advice. This is not my medical diagnosing. This is about pattern recognition and neurology, right? They see themselves doing something that they couldn't believe they did, and it feels like it's out of their control. And now they're a victim to their rage. Does that make sense? So this is one way that this explosion of power can manifest. However, some people, either with repeated episodes or even on the first time, when they are in that state where they're backed up against the wall and they lash out, this might be the first time they've ever experienced their power. And they can become power hungry or develop a bloodlust, like, oh yeah, I'm capable of doing this. And then that's when they become a full-blown villain. When they start using their power in self-serving, destructive ways, tearing people down. Instead of over here on the hero side of things, building up civilization and empowering people and stuff, they use the power they have inside in self-serving, destructive ways, right? So that is the telltale sign of a villain. Very counter. Two very different experiences. Now, you might be wondering, what do we do with all this, right? First, the diagnostic tool. It's to begin to pay attention when you notice yourself on the hero's journey, right? When are you looking at obstacles as challenges, as games, things to overcome, ways to grow, right? And to get a sense of that reference. Then to pay attention, what things do you focus on where it feels like it's out of your power? And when you feel like things are completely out of your power, challenge yourself to notice one little thing that is within your grasp, right? We can always choose how we respond to anything outside of ourselves. So there's one thing that is always within your power. And then to also notice, when are you using your power in destructive ways and self-serving ways? And use that as kind of like a wake-up call, like, oh shit, I'm slipping down this way, as a way to bring yourself back to being a hero. That is the first one. This is also a tool, a word of caution, a word of warning. Again, I love conversing with, connecting with, working with people here and above, right? Why? Many different reasons. Generally, value alignment. Our values are aligned. We're on a similar path. We appreciate the challenge. We know what it feels like to come out the other side, to level up, to grow, to constantly be pushing ourselves, right? So there's a big sense of value alignment. The other thing is, on the flip side, energy vampires. It's easy for a person to slip back into this, right? Like, it's easier to maintain the momentum and to keep going this way once you break this threshold. But in this area, you need like reminders and anchors to bring you back here and going this route. It can be easy to slip back here and to start going this way. So by having this heuristic, right, kind of like a vetting process filtering system, I can easily be aware of who aligns with me value-wise and who will energetically keep me, like, build me up, right? Keep me in the zone, keep me pushing myself. And these people tend to be energy vampires, right? They tend to kind of like drain you and start facing all the atrocities of the world and all these things that are outside your control. And I'm not denying that they're happening. It's the question is, what is within my influence? What can I do? So I like to focus on what I can do that's impactful in my own way, instead of depressing myself with all of the negative stuff that's happening in the world, because so many different things, momentum building, scaling, all of that is going to have a bigger impact than dwelling, right? So this is a great diagnostic tool to check on who's an energy vampire and to consider who you'd like to engage with, but also to what capacity. And this brings me to my final point. So I have a really good friend. He is an expert in hypnosis. He's been doing it since 1968, but more than that, he is the most amazing human that I know, that I've ever met in this life. And the reason why is he taught me a very important lesson at a very young age. I used to be very kind of like either or, good versus evil, focused on morality and trying to be a better version of myself, and kind of like, I was very hard on myself, so I did not have self-compassion, and it was hard for me to extend it to others. So I would be hard on people that weren't living up to my ideal. All right, all that outside. This gentleman, he used to work in the prison systems at Cook County. So he would work with inmates, specifically murderers, rapists, people that have done some of the most heinous things, people that have killed mothers, right? People that, by our standards, we would consider villains. And an interesting thing happened. So today, the theme, every day I draw a virtue card. Today is compassion. And what I thought was really interesting is he had such a capacity to extend compassion to the most heinous of villains, that by creating that space and having such strong compassion for them, he was able to bring them from here over here and help them to rehabilitate and to become, functional members of society, right? So there's hope in this. Just because a person is over here doesn't mean they're destined to be there forever. And if you so choose, again, going back to what makes sense for you, you can venture out of your comfort zone and begin to connect with people where you feel safe and secure, where you're taking care of your own energy, so that way you don't end up a villain or a victim, right? So you can begin to extend yourself further and further and further, knowing that you have the capacity to help a person bridge the gap, to get back from being here to here to here. Does that make sense? So I just wanted to share this with you. I think it's a really interesting model. There's a lot of depth to it, and I thought there was a lot of wisdom that you could get from this. So that being said, I do invite you to shift. in those areas in your life where you're feeling like this, to begin to notice what is within your influence, what is within your control, how would I like to respond to this, and to begin to make that journey all the way up to the hero that you have inside that's wanting to live and shine through you. Tap into your inner power, and if for whatever reason you need help with this, don't hesitate to reach out. Awesome. Take care.